Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Krista Moore Show. I'm excited to introduce to you one of my best friends and colleagues, and it's Maria Kingery. She's going to be my guest today. Yay! We get to meet Maria. She is the founder of Maria Kingery and Company, and also the co-founder of Southern Energy Management. She's a powerful entrepreneur in the Raleigh area and actually globally. So I'm really excited to have her with us today. So say hello to our audience.
Hi, audience. Thank you so much, Krista, for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Good. So I thought it would be great if you could introduce yourself, maybe give a little bit of background on who you are to get us started.
Sure. So I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, kind of small town in Central Virginia, and moved to the Triangle area in the mid-'80s when it was not nearly as bustling as it is today. Went to NC State and never left. Met my husband here and have been married for 27 years. And we have a 16-year-old son.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe he's 16.
Hard for me to believe as well,
right.
Yeah.
That's great. So why don't we give a little bit of background on your first company that you co-founded? Maybe tell us a little bit about what the dream was behind that and some of the things that you've learned along the way.
Whew, absolutely. We've learned a lot along the way. So our company is Southern Energy Management. We founded that company in 2001. I did co-found it with my husband, so I know what it's like to work with family and in a small business. We did energy efficiency and solar work. The company still exists. They are just doing much better and jamming without me. My husband is running the company currently, but we started at a time when solar really wasn't even on the radar in the nation. And we've been called pioneers, we've been called crazy, we've been called a lot of different things. But we're proud that we really, along with many others, have helped, really been focused on growing that industry. It's something that we really believe in.
Yeah, very passionate about.
Very passionate about that, and green building, and basically, you know, our mission, what we say is we change the way people make and use energy. So that's really meaningful to us. So that was for 15 years. Bob and I worked literally, our desks faced one another. We had a partner's desk.
Yeah.
And we went through many ups and downs in business.
It's not easy being a business partner with your husband, trust me.
Yeah.
As well, right?
Yeah.
And actually, many of our viewers are from small businesses, family-owned businesses, so they know what some of those struggles can be. And one of the things that I love about your story with Southern Energy Management is when you had that aha moment, like, oh my gosh, we could be so much better. And why don't you tell us about that discovery?
Yeah, so we had many aha moments that we weren't as good as we wanted to be along the way. But really the big aha came when we had tried a number of different operating systems. Like how do we, like we were very good technically at what we did for a living. Running a business, particularly as it grew, became increasingly challenging. And so the first aha, I would say, was when we realized that we did need an operating system to use. And then the second big aha was when we found the Entrepreneurial Operating System and started to implement that. And we realized, you know, all of the things that we sort of struggle with and that we sweat about and that keeps us up at night. First of all, almost every entrepreneur has the same type of struggles.
Yeah.
But the big aha is, wow, there's a system that we can use to lessen these and to make them less stressful, and so we can enjoy our business and enjoy our lives more.
So since then, and I think since that aha moment of starting to implement the Entrepreneurial Operating System into your business, you soon realized that you had a new passion, and that was helping other businesses do the same thing. So tell us a little bit about that transition to your own business, and then I want to take a real deep dive into that system for our audience today.
Sure, great. So yeah, it's sort of like when you find something that works, you want to tell the world about it. And so this system was working so well for our company that I bought a case of the books. There's a book called Traction. I bought a case of books and started giving them away to every entrepreneur that I knew, and just really got excited about it. And one day, our business had gotten to the point where my specific role in the company, which was really holding the culture of the company and setting the vision for the company more long term. I realized, we have built such a strong team who all shared that vision and was really bought into it. I didn't have to be there every day.
Yeah.
And so me, Krista, I'm not the type of person I'm just going to sit around and not do anything. So I started looking around. What's my next thing? What can I do? And I'm very tuned into, I want to make an impact in the world. So I say one of my core values is impact the impactors. So I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to have the greatest impact? And what I decided that was learning more about how to actually do this work and implement it for other companies.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So some of you may be familiar with the Entrepreneurial Operating System. You might have even seen Maria and I speak at the Advantage Business Conference 2 years ago. We had a big crowd, probably 300-400 people.
That was fun.
It was a lot of fun. And since then, we've had a heightened interest from many small business owners on what the heck is this EOS system and how can I use pieces of it in my business, and or how do I get engaged with an actual professional implementer to help me execute this tried and true system. So we're going to do a little bit of education today as we have our conversation, but I'd like you to take notes, and if you have any questions, you can certainly give Maria a call or myself a call afterwards, and we'll be glad to answer them for you. So what would you say, what would you say is maybe the biggest outcome that a company can expect when they implement the EOS system?
Yeah. So when we talk about EOS, we talk about 3 different things. We say that EOS helps a company both create, simplify, and really get their long-term vision. Really, everybody in their company on the same page with what that is. So a lot of times companies know what that vision, the owner may know what that vision, but the founders and the leadership team, the rest of the company doesn't know. Yeah. So that's one thing. The entire company becomes really gelled around this great vision for where they want to go. And the other thing is there are simple tools that EOS implementers that we teach in order to actually execute the vision. Yeah. So, we say we help owners get more from their business, more what they want from their businesses. But the other thing that actually happens is that the employees of the organization actually get more of what they want because they understand where the company is going and how they're contributing to help it to get there. So it's like this perfect combination where, yes, the owners and the leaders get what they're looking for out of an operating system, but also the real magic is in getting everybody on the team aligned around it and excited about it.
Yeah. One thing that I really liked about it, and that we've gotten some great feedback from small businesses that have started to implement it, is around the accountability factors, where people are more clear on what their responsibility is, what their role is, and how they contribute to the bigger picture, and they're held accountable to that. What I'd like to do is take that, I call it a pie, because they use like a pie chart often to describe the different pieces of the system. I'm going to ask us to start at the top of that piece of the pie, and we'll kind of go through it because it is a system, so it's a process, and one feeds off of the next. So first is vision.
First is vision, and that was the first thing that I started with. So I spoke a little bit about that. When we talk about vision, we talk about 6 key components. 8 questions. Sorry, the pie is made up of 6 key components. And then there are 8 questions that we answer. And we'll go into all of those, but it starts with your core values and your core purpose, which is really important. And often, a lot of times companies have mission statements, but they haven't answered the question of why do we actually exist? And maybe they have core values that sound good, but they don't really represent the actual values of the company.
So if you follow the Traction book, you could guide yourself through this discovery of core values. You can also access the EOS website for some additional tools, or you can have an EOS implementer on site that can kind of facilitate that discussion around core values. And I want to stay on core values for a moment because so many companies are starting to really focus on that and really looking for additional employees that align to their core values. So what is the benefit of really clearly understanding core values and hiring against those?
So, and I want to point out, so core values, that's the first of the 8 questions, right? But it is the foundation of the vision for the company. And the benefit is when a team, and often again starts with the founders, when a team gets really clear on what they value, and this is not just, like, everybody values trust and integrity, right? I mean, I call those table stakes values. Those are things that we want to have in anybody that we would choose to work with. But I'll give you an example. One of my clients, actually my company, has a core value of seek solutions. And that means a lot of different things. What it means is we're not going to be satisfied with the status quo. We're always going to be looking to make things better. Not everybody fits in an environment like that. There are people who simply want to show up, they want to do their job, they want to do it well, and that's fine. But it's not in a company, in companies that want to innovate and that really want to push things forward and be growing and moving forward. That's that core value. And again, it can be stated in a number of different ways, but that core value is really critical. And to have the people on your team
that believe and are passionate about that same value. And what that's creating then is a culture. And it's a culture that is the culture that the company wants to be, and to kind of move them in the right direction. When I think about core values, I was just thinking about this LinkedIn video that I saw the other day that Gary Vanderchamp was putting out there. And it was about kind of the demise of Toys R Us and the filing of bankruptcy. And the one core value he was saying they were missing was innovate or die.
Right.
That there was a time and place when they were the king of toys and they had their followership, but they made some bad decisions and weren't continuing to innovate. They kind of got stuck into the traditional retail environment instead of creating experiences. And so a lot of that starts from the top, right? That's the leadership component.
Absolutely.
That is creating that culture.
Well, and also they didn't have a clear vision of bringing us back again. There's that first piece of it. They didn't have a clear vision of where the company was going to go. And oftentimes, particularly, and I will say, the more successful companies you'll often see are those that sort of rest on their laurels and, well, this is what we've always done. I mean, we've seen it over and over again as disruption is happening with technology across pretty much every industry. No more. And then, again, this is the value of having a codified and consistent system that you're using to constantly check in and make sure, are we headed in the right direction?
And one thing about those 8 questions, when it's around that first piece of the pie, you are looking at 1-year vision, you're looking at quarterly kind of rocks and goals, but you're also looking out 10 years. Had Toys R Us had that vision of what's going to happen to the sales of toys 10 years from now, and they made a bad decision 10 years ago and opened up the distribution of their products through Amazon. Well, fast forward, and that's who's taken over their business.
We're probably going to see that again
and
again.
I think that's true.
But that's a really good point that I do want to point out, because I wish we had all afternoon that we could chat about this and go through the whole entire thing. But just want to point out, as far as the vision, it is called vision, but even there's you end up with a 2-sheet piece of paper, double-sided sheet of paper. On one side is your vision, and that's your core values, core purpose, your 10-year target, your marketing strategy, and a 3-year picture. Those are all vision components. Then there's the other side. So that's called the vision page. You flip it over and you got your traction page. And that's 1 year, 90 days. And what are any issues that are getting your way?
Let's talk about the traction piece. So everyone, I think, is kind of grabbing on that the first and foremost is that mission, vision, kind of what's the passion of the business, and it needs to be shared by all. And the leader and the leadership team needs to make sure that they're communicating that appropriately. But in order to make it happen, or to put it into action, there needs to be that traction component. So why don't you describe that for us?
Yeah. So again, you've got this vision of where you want to take the company. And then it's really, really important that and they all need to be aligned, right? And it sort of works backwards. So you start with your 10-year, and then that goes to your 3-year. And the next thing we work on is 1 year. Okay, what are the things that we need to absolutely, and EOS, and as in anything in life, honestly, the more focused you can be, less is more, like making sure, and there's a whole process that EOS uses to make sure that you are actually identifying those key things that are going to move the needle the most for your business. So you end up with, and I refer to them as critical success factors. What are the 5 to 7 things we absolutely have to get right this year?
You know, one of the things that, and the reason I think this works so well for entrepreneurs is I used to have this boss that we didn't want him to go away on a trip because he would be reading something on the airplane and then come back and change the plan. Like, okay, I read this, now this is what we're going to do. And that used to drive us crazy. And really that held us back. So I see that traction piece, once it's kind of documented, it's the Bible, and this is what you're going to be following. And then that accountability piece on the traction gets everybody's buy-in. Well,
absolutely, and that's exactly how EOS works, and what I tell all my teams. You know, with exception, right? So we do go back one time and review the 1 year, because let's face it, we're in a room for a day or whatever it is, and we're coming up with this. The other thing is the answer's in the room. Most of the time, people know what the most important things are. It's just getting that agreement and getting that clarity and having everybody agree on it.
Yeah.
But then the other piece is, so you've got that 1 year. We're all in agreement. We're making sure that everybody's 100% bought in. When we're in that room together, now's your chance. If you don't believe that this is the direction we need to be going, let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. But then every quarter we come in and we say, okay, we've got our 1 year. What do we need to do this 90 days in order to move to the 1 year? Again, in order to move to 3 year, in order to move to our 10 year.
So another piece of the pie that comes into play at this point is the accountability chart. And maybe you can describe how the accountability chart is different than an organizational chart, and then how maybe these assignments are made.
Yeah, so that is a common question. So an accountability chart, actually when it's drawn out, it looks much like an organizational chart. The key difference is that an accountability chart is built based on what the business needs, not necessarily on a hierarchical structure. So when I work with clients, for example, and we do this very early in the process, it's actually the first thing we do on day one. We come in and we build an accountability chart. And I tell them, forget whatever structure the business is today. It may end up looking very similar. Often it does. But often when we focus on what does the business need in order to be successful, and again, this is a facilitated process, we often make discoveries where there are key things that the business needs in order to meet its goals that no one's accountable for.
Yeah.
And it's not clear.
So it's more about the responsibilities and the tasks opposed to the people. And I've been through this process with you before in working with a client, and it is so difficult to have these empty boxes and not be thinking about who is responsible for that. So let's just take sales leadership as an example.
Yeah.
So who's not who, but the responsibility of sales leadership. It's hard to have that discussion without thinking about Joe down the hall who really wants to be a manager or who has a title today, because that's not what it is.
It's really, really, that's a key point. And just for clarity for you guys, so we create the chart first. We put no names in it. We create what does the business need with roles, and we call them seats. Only after we are satisfied that we have the right structure for the organization do we go back and start to put people's names in it. And often Joe is the sales leader, and he absolutely is the person who should go in that seat. But we start without that assumption. And then really, really important point, we ask the other piece of, so you've got your roles, your major roles in each seat. There's something we call GWC, and that stands for get it, want it, capacity to do it. So before Joe's name goes into that seat, we ask, does Joe get it? Really? The second one is often overlooked and so very important. Does Joe even want the job?
Yeah.
Right? Does he want that role? And then third, does he have the capacity to do it well? And that involves both capacity within the organization and also just taking into consideration Joe's life, you know, and who and what other demands he has. Does he have the capacity to do this job? Again, to provide to deliver the accountabilities that the organization needs.
And one thing that I really like about that too is kind of like which comes first, the people or the job, you know, and it's kind of like the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Often organizations are creating jobs or functions around people, and this is actually quite the opposite, and probably at the end of the day, the right way to do it. Maybe it doesn't feel like the humanistic approach to it, but we've seen what a significance it makes by doing the reverse and doing what's best for the company.
Can I respond to that though? So I think, and I had a really hard time with this because look, I'm all about the people and all about my team. And when I mean, one of my goals in life, again, impact the impactors. I want to help people. I understand that's how we achieve anything in the world. And so I had this challenge with, oh, well, Joe's such a great person. And, you know, we're going to work with Joe and maybe, well, Joe wasn't good in this role. So let's put Joe in this role right here. But it was all about the person and it wasn't what the business needed. Yeah. And I had this really talk about a big aha one day, and this is so much easier for me now. And I'm not cold about it. But what I realized was, okay, Joe being in a role that he doesn't GWC, that doesn't want to have the capacity. He's not going to be happy. He's not going to be happy anyway. And not only that, but all the other people who are on that accountability chart are counting on Joe to get his job done.
Yeah, it's a complete breakdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
it's not personal.
It's not, no. And I think I like the GWC approach because it's pretty easy to remember. Plus, it's equal, right? Everybody's kind of getting assessed in a similar way. And there's actually tools within the toolbox that EOS has, kind of a chart. It's an accountability chart, is what it's called. And you're putting a plus or minus by a person's name, whether they align to the core values, and then also for that position, did they get it, do they want it, and do they have the capacity? So it's kind of like a scorecard that I think brings the whole team to life. And the outcome I see there is realizing where the gaps are and what you might need to go out and find, or what are the training and development opportunities for certain employees to, because you know they have the capacity, they just need the extra training and learning.
Absolutely. And really important too. So that's a way to, like, so often when it comes time to evaluate employees, it feels very subjective. It's like, oh, is Joe doing his job? And really important. And a lot of companies do have measurables in place, but that's, you know,
most don't.
Well, they're watching something, but the key difference in EOS is like our goal is so that every role, has a number. And then it takes a lot of that emotion. That's another component of the 6K. That's the data component.
Because I think that's an important one. There's one thing having access to that data, but there's another watching the right data and then reacting and responding in a timely manner to what's happening with the data. So describe a little bit about that data piece of the pie and how that fits in.
Yeah. So the way we talk about it within EOS is this is not about watching 100 different numbers and checking in on them every day. It's like this is about getting the absolute right numbers that are showing on a weekly basis, preferably, where the company is going and if you're meeting your goals. So they have to be designed, like all of this, the beautiful thing about EOS, it's a system. And so this is part of the system. So you do this at the company level, like what are our quarterly rocks, what are our annual goals? You want to have data, you want to have measurables that align with those. Otherwise, how do you know if you're actually achieving them?
And the exercise that I saw you do, Maria, that I think really worked well, and many business owners can relate to this, is asking that question. If you were stranded on a desert island and you needed to know 5 things, or, what are the 5 critical success factors that you absolutely would need to know? And so that helps you really get down to a simplified list of what's really the key indicators for performance.
Well, and the goal is, right, that anybody would be able to leave, and go to that deserted island for a certain amount of time. Like there's something also in EOS that I love called clarity breaks, and talks about how you must step outside of the system in order to get clarity on it at a time. So that's really important.
Yeah. There was another piece of the pie, and I didn't want to skip any, but there was one that I think that a lot of businesses have really resonated with, and that is the issue resolution.
Yeah.
And from what my experience is, often in meetings or in just regular business operations, they're having meetings for the sake of having meetings, but things aren't actually getting resolved, or things get pushed off onto a back burner. And that issue resolution was a great method for bringing it up and discussing it and solving the issues so that you can get the traction. Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, well, it is probably my favorite component, other than the people component, because people make everything happen. But when we talk about issues, a lot of companies, like it's part of business. Every business faces issues. So first of all, it's just that acknowledgement of, hey, we're going to have issues, right? It's just it's an accepted assumption that we're going to have challenges. They're going to come up. Now the question is, how are we going to deal with them? So in EOS, we teach something called IDS, and it's called Identify, Discuss, and Solve. So first of all, because as you said, a lot of times we just talk about a thing.
And no resolution.
Yeah. And the same problem, it comes up again and again. Maybe it looks a little different. It's another flavor, but it's the same thing. So we teach a method of really digging and digging and digging. And it does require a great deal of willingness to be open and honest. So you have to have a high trust team. And again, that's why it's all a system. It goes back to having the right people who share your core values and all that. And, but when you can dig down and really get to what the core is, only then do you discuss it. And then you solve it. And I always tell my clients, so the 6 components, just real quick: vision, people, data, process, issues, and traction. So I always tell people the first places to look, the very first place to look is often people. The second is process. Yeah. It's where a lot of
there's a breakdown.
Yeah.
That's great.
And again, it's not the end of the world. And when you get the right people, and so we say right people, right seats, right? You get the right people, share your core values, are fired up about where you're taking the company, and then right seats, they're in the right spot in the accountability chart. When you get that, you can talk openly and honestly, and you understand whatever comes your way. Well, it's just an issue.
It's more of a team approach to handling it. One of the key tools that I see many businesses pull out of the EOS system and use, even if they don't use the full model, is the level 10 meetings. And there's an easy format for that. And I just would like you to describe to our audience about level 10 meetings and ways that maybe they could even start using similar meetings in their business right away.
Absolutely. So if anybody is interested in this, I would say it is the one thing that can transform your business the fastest. You can, if you want to Google level 10 meeting video, there's an awesome YouTube video that describes how you run a level 10 meeting. But basically, it's a specific agenda that you follow. And I won't go through the whole thing in the interest of time, but there's a very specific agenda. And it starts with really just getting present with a segue and being able to leave everything that you are just dealing with, all the people, you come into a meeting with all the things, your emails, really present. So there's no electronics allowed. I mean, it's things like that, right? Yeah. Really, that we don't think about. But then the vast majority of the time in a level 10 meeting is devoted to issue solving. And then there's accountability built in, because from the issues, we agree on things that we're going to do, like whatever the solve is, somebody's going to have to do something.
Yeah.
That goes on a to-do list that then gets checked off next week.
And the accountability piece is pretty quick. I mean, everyone knows what their role and responsibility is, or what their rocks are that they're responsible for. And you're reporting in whether you're on track or off track. You're not giving some big long dissertation as to why it isn't working or finger pointing. Those are taken offline into a separate meeting. And that's what I think makes it so productive.
It's really, really important. That's a really important point, is that, you know, from my perspective, ever since I have a hard time going to a meeting now that is not run this way.
Yeah.
And EOS's perspective is the only real reason that you should put people into a room is to solve problems. So that's what you focus on.
Yeah.
And the rest is just reporting. And we do that part really quick.
So how long does a level 10 meeting typically last?
It typically it's not typical. It's very prescribed. It can be, but it's 90 minutes.
90 minutes.
It's a 90-minute meeting, and 1 hour of that is devoted to issue solving.
Is there someone that is responsible for facilitating that meeting? Or is it the team each have a?
Yeah, I mean, whoever's the best facilitator. It doesn't necessarily have to be the leader of the department.
Yeah.
It's whoever's the best at keeping things moving. And again, because IDSing, or, you know, identifying, discussing, and solving is the biggest part of that, the issue solving, it should be, and the whole team really should participate in this, but it should be somebody who is not afraid to stand up and say, look, guys, we're not at the core issue yet.
Yeah. One thing that I like about it too is once the cadence is set, and let's say the leadership team is using this as their standard meeting agenda, that then can be taken down into other levels. So groups that normally wouldn't have meetings now can have meetings following the same format, and it rolls up into the leadership team.
So that is a really important point. Now, and we talk all the time about like 100%, you know, getting 100% with any of these things is really utopia. But what we do want to have, we want to have everybody in the company eventually in a level 10 meeting. And here's what that does. Again, it's our place where we're solving problems. Anybody in the organization can bring an issue. Anybody in the organization can bring up a problem. And so no more is it like, oh, well, management's not doing this, or, you know, or Joe's doing that. Poor Joe, we're beating up on him a little bit today. But yeah, he might not GWC his role. We might have a problem with Joe. But at any rate, it gets rid of a lot of finger pointing.
Yeah, the finger pointing goes out the window.
Yeah, there's no place to hide anymore. And you don't want to, right? Because you're fired up.
So when I think about this, and we're talking about this particular system, it's really a collection of great business processes and systems that have been around for years, let's say, wrapped up nicely into a particular program that can be taught and implemented and facilitated with the whole end in mind, which is to get movement and to get traction and to help businesses meet their objectives and their goals. So hopefully you learned something about that today that you can apply into your business. Is there anything you want to add before we close?
Anything I want to add?
Yeah.
I would say, the one thing I would say, obviously, if anybody wants to reach out to me, you're welcome to.
Yeah, we're going to put some contact information up on the screen, if that's okay. So we'll show you Maria's contact information if you want to reach out to her and talk with her. There's her email.
Yeah. And another thing I would say is everyone should have a system that they operate their business on. EOS is one. There are others out there, but everybody should have one. Because it takes the how are we going to do things, you know, off the table. Like, how are we going to operate, and let you focus on what do we want to accomplish in the world. That's right.
And for many business owners and leaders, they want, they're an entrepreneur and in business primarily. I'm going to take a stab here because of that personal freedom, and to be able to be working on your business instead of in it can give you that you're really working so hard for, which is to have that personal freedom.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to say goodbye.
All right.
Thank you. That really went fast.
It did. Thank you, Krista.
I appreciate you.
And best of luck to everybody out there. If I can help you, let me know.
Awesome. So make sure, I'm going to grab my notes here too. Make sure that you stay tuned for next month's Krista Moore show. I have another exciting guest, and her name is Wendy Corbett. Some of you might know Wendy. She is the owner of Refresher Training, but she is so much more than a training organization. She has a beautiful soul and a wonderful story that can help inspire all of us to be our best self and not be so concerned about what other people think, and really to be free to be me. So I love her message, and I think that she could be inspiring for all of us. So join me on April 18th at 2 o'clock for the Krista Moore Show. Until then, bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Maria.
Yes. Yay.